In 1881, one of the most respected scientists who ever lived spent the final year of his life writing a book about something almost nobody thought was worth studying. Not evolution, not natural selection, worms. And what he discovered is the same reason some gardens explode with vegetables every single year, while others, right next door, with the same sun and the same water, barely produce anything at all. Before I show you exactly what he found and how to use it in your own backyard this week, I want to point you to something that will make everything in this video 10 times easier to apply. My team put together a complete step-by-step system called the Food Self-Sufficiency Blueprint, and it walks you through exactly how to build soil like this. Plant a garden that feeds your family year-round, and stop relying so heavily on the grocery store. You can grab it right now at growyourground.net/lifey.app. Keep that open in another tab, because everything I'm about to show you connects directly to it. Now, let's talk about the man who figured this out a century and a half before soil science caught up to him. Charles Darwin spent most of his career rewriting how humanity understood life on Earth. He gave us evolution, he gave us natural selection, he changed biology forever. And then, for his very last book, the one he wrote knowing it might be his final contribution to science, he didn't write about exotic species or far-off islands. He wrote about the creatures living under the grass. Garden worms. That book actually outsold On the Origin of Species in its first year. And in it, Darwin made a claim that most scientists at the time considered ridiculous. He said earthworms were among the most important animals in the history of the planet, and that without them, farming as we know it simply couldn't exist. For over a century, that claim sat mostly ignored. Then modern soil science finally caught up and confirmed he wasn't exaggerating at all. Here's the part that matters most for you. The method he stumbled onto for bringing worms back into dead soil is something almost nobody uses today. For most of agricultural history across Europe, earthworms were treated as pests. To understand why this discovery was so radical, you have to go back further, to a time when farmers actively killed them. For most of agricultural history across Europe, earthworms were treated as pests. Farmers assumed they were chewing through roots, damaging seeds, and wrecking the soil structure. So they poured salted water down worm burrows. They stomped them out after rainstorms. The idea that a blind, boneless creature living underground could possibly be helping seemed absurd. Then, in 1789, a quiet English naturalist named Gilbert White published a book suggesting the opposite. That worm burrows loosened soil, that their waste enriched it, and maybe gardeners should stop destroying them. Almost nobody paid attention, except a young Darwin who read it and couldn't let the idea go. For the next 4 decades, in between his work on evolution, he kept coming back to worms, methodically. What most people don't know is that Darwin ran private worm experiments for years. He kept live colonies in his study. He played instruments near them to test sound response. He offered them leaves to see which ones they preferred. He tracked how much earth they displaced, how deep they dug, and how they reacted to light. It was slow, patient, unglamorous science, the opposite of a flashy breakthrough. And the conclusion he eventually published was staggering. Worms in a single pasture were moving 20 tons of soil per acre, per year, enough to build a brand new layer of topsoil 7 inches thick in just 3 decades. He wrote that it was doubtful any other animal had played a bigger role in shaping the history of life on Earth. That wasn't poetry, that was data. And modern research has since shown he actually understated it. Quick pause. If this kind of deep dive into how your soil actually works is useful to you, subscribe now. That's exactly the mindset behind Grow Your Ground and the full food self-sufficiency blueprint at growyourground.net/lifey.app. It takes everything you're about to learn and turns it into an actual month-by-month growing plan. Back to the worms. Darwin measured what he could with Victorian tools. Today, we see what's happening at a biological level. When a worm eats its way through soil, it's consuming a blend of organic debris and mineral particles. Inside its gut, that material gets ground down and mixed with enzymes and beneficial microbes. What comes out the other end, called a casting, is one of the most nutrient-dense materials on Earth. Worm castings contain 5 times more nitrogen, 7 times more phosphorus, and 11 times more potassium than soil. And unlike synthetic fertilizer, none of it arrives as a chemical flood that can burn roots or wash into groundwater. It releases slowly over months, feeding plants steadily instead of all at once. It's a natural perfection. A single gram of quality worm castings can contain billions of beneficial microorganisms, not millions, billions. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, all working together long after the worm has already moved on. Here's the number that really matters. Soil with a healthy worm population produced roughly 25% more harvested yield. Same seeds, same water, same sunlight. The only difference was whether worms were living underground. 25% more food for free from soil you already own. Imagine that potential. To understand why the impact is that large, you need to picture what's actually happening beneath your feet. Worms aren't just wandering randomly, they're building infrastructure. There are 3 general types of earthworms. Each one works a different layer of soil. Surface-dwelling worms live in the top inch or two, breaking down litter. Worms in the middle layer dig horizontal tunnels, mixing organic matter directly into the mineral soil. And the deep-burrowing worms, the big night crawlers, dig vertical shafts that can run several feet straight down. They connect the surface to the subsoil like elevator shafts. At night, they surface to grab leaves. They drag them down into those tunnels, where the material slowly decomposes and enriches the deeper soil. If you've noticed small mounds of soil mixed with bits of leaf sitting on undisturbed ground, that's a vertical highway. Those tunnels aren't just for worms. Research shows they can increase water absorption by up to 75%. Rain soaks in instead of running off. Roots follow the nutrient-rich walls downward, searching out paths worms carved. Every layer of the system supports every other layer. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, all clustering around worm activity. Remove the worms and the whole network collapses. Bring them back and everything else follows. Why are most gardens empty? Because most common gardening habits, done with good intentions, are quietly wiping worms out. Tilling is the biggest offender. Every pass of a rototiller physically slices through worm bodies, destroys months of tunnel networks in minutes. It exposes moist underground soil to sun and air, drying it out fast. Worms that survive the blades flee entirely. Chemical fertilizers are the second problem. Synthetic nitrogen salts gradually acidify soil, pushing away neutral pH. Since earthworms breathe through their skin, exposure to concentrated salts causes dehydration, like a slug on salt. Pesticides are the third hit, even ones not targeting worms. Fungicides wipe out the microbial food sources. Herbicides strip away surface vegetation worms use for food and cover. And then, there's bare, unmulched soil. Exposed dirt can climb past 130 degrees. Worms are 80% water. They won't stay in soil that hot. Bare soil also dries out too fast between waterings for the top few inches to stay livable. The result? A dead zone. The irony is that every single one of these habits is done to help the garden. People till thinking it helps roots. They fertilize because they think plants need a boost. Every intention is good. Every result starves the ecosystem. Here's something you can do the second this video ends. Go outside. Dig up 1 cubic foot of soil. Dump it onto a tarp and count the worms. 10 or more is healthy. 5 to 10 is struggling but recoverable. Fewer than 5 means your soil is actively hostile to life underground, and your plants are feeling that signs. If your number was low, don't worry. This is exactly what we fix, and it costs nothing. The real fix? Environment. The mistake is buying a box of worms and dumping them in. That almost never works long term. Conditions are key. Worms already exist in your neighborhood. We just need to change the environment so they migrate in and stay. Step 1. The cardboard layer. Take plain brown corrugated cardboard, strip off tape, and lay it flat on worst soil. Overlap every seam by 6 inches so weeds can't push through, then soak it completely until it's heavy and saturated. This blocks light and kills weeds without chemicals, locks in damp conditions, and as it decomposes, it's food. Worms are strongly drawn to decomposing cellulose. Some will migrate from 30 feet away or more, following signals. Step 2. The mulch blanket. On top of cardboard, spread a thick layer of organic mulch, straw, leaves, or wood chips. Go at least 4 to 6 inches deep. This recreates a forest floor, the exact environment where earthworms thrive. It insulates soil from extremes, holds moisture like a sponge, and continuously feeds the population from above. Some growers call this a worm sandwich because worms congregate directly between the 2 layers, eating both. They deposit nutrient-rich castings right into your soil surface. Step 3. Feeding. Speed everything up. Add nitrogen-rich material, compost, aged manure, coffee grounds, or kitchen scraps tucked under the mulch. Crushed eggshells are especially valuable since they give worms calcium for reproduction and needed grit. One trick, set up feeding stations across the bed, lift a corner of mulch weekly, and drop scraps on cardboard. Worms will concentrate around these spots fast, building up dense pockets of castings exactly where you want them. Step 4, and the hardest, stop disturbing the soil. No tilling, no double digging, no flipping the beds each spring. Every time you till, you demolish the tunnel network worms spent months building and force them to start over. In a no-till system, tunnels stay intact and get more complex every year. Your your soil improves season after season. When it's time to plant, simply push mulch aside, cut a hole in cardboard, and plant directly into soil. Then push the mulch back and let worms keep working, undisturbed, just inches away. What to expect? Week by week. Within 2 to 4 weeks, pull back the cardboard on a damp morning and you'll likely see worms gathering. By month 2 or 3, soil beneath cardboard visibly darkens, organic matter pulled in, and it softens enough for fingers. By month 4 through 6, cardboard itself will mostly be gone, consumed, leaving behind darker, crumblier soil. By year end, you'll have a self-sustaining worm population that keeps expanding. Just keep adding mulch and matter. Darwin figured this out, that a blind creature was responsible for the soil that feeds the entire planet. Proven. It took science over a century to fully catch up to his proof. The question isn't if worms fix soil. They can. The real question is whether you're willing to stop doing things that drive them away. For the complete system, grab it. Go to growyourground.netlifey.app right now. It's built to work alongside everything you just learned. Start today. It's the fastest way to turn this into a real garden. If you got value, subscribe to Grow Your Ground. More every week. Drop a comment with your worm count. I read every single one. See you in the next video. Grow Your Ground.